Chapter 7 is called From Lamech to Noah, and it pretty much does what it says on the tin, really. It gets us from Genesis 4 up to the end of Genesis 11. I didn't realise how important Lamech was until I started studying for this book. But I think he's a really key figure in the way that he exemplifies the degradation of culture and the way in which culture becomes weaponized by sin in the early chapters of Genesis. And he's extremely unsavoury, but I think he's a key transitional figure in that sense. And Noah, it's just a wonderful story, isn't it? Noah found favour in the eyes of the Lord. While he was an idol worshipper, before he'd done anything to recommend himself to God, before he'd shown that he was willing to build an ark or anything like that, God found favour, or grace, it can be translated, in the eyes of the Lord. And I think that verse is so incredibly significant for a Christian view of time and possibility and social change, because it shows that God is intervening into Noah's life in a way that's not scripted by his past. Noah's not defined, is he, by his parents? He fell out of the cot when he was a child and then became a murderer later in life. It's not that sort of your childhood destines you to what you are in the future. God breaks into that sort of iron causality with grace. And so Noah's life is defined not by the choices he's made, but by God reaching out to him in grace. And then I try and weave that into a discussion of the philosophical idea of the event. The event is something that's unpredicted, unscripted, that changes things. Political philosophers often think of revolutions as events, things that we weren't expecting. And it's really, really hard to get a sense of what that might be. An event that's not predetermined by what went before it. That's sort of the holy grail of this sort of philosophical quest. But here we have it in the Bible. Noah found favour in the eyes of the Lord, not because that was sort of scripted by his behaviour, not because he'd earned it, not because it was the sum of a calculation of everything that had happened in his past, but because God chose to show grace to him from outside the closed system of human cause and effect. And anyway, I think that is very exciting for philosophers. And I think it's also a point that we can really get our teeth into as cultural critics as well. I'm sort of nerding out slightly on the event, aren't I? But I think whether or not one is a philosopher, this idea that Noah found favour in the eyes of the Lord is incredibly exciting and liberating, probably pastorally really significant as well, and just a fantastic verse.